Welcome everyone, thanks for coming. I know that we're like up the hill in the back room and second to last session, so I'm happy to see so many faces. Like Ryan said, I work at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, and to give you a little background, the School of the Art Institute of Chicago is a 150-year-old institution. We're kind of partnered with the museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, which got a really nice accolade recently. We just gave Kanye West an honorary doctorate, always on the top of controversy. And this is what we missed this morning. The Chicago Blackhawks won the Stanley Cup. Yes, if you're a hockey fan. And actually the picture on the right is from our office. So you can see how many people are there. This is the end of the parade route, so this is not nearly as many people as that showed up. So I think I'm happy to miss it. I'm not sure. I'm excited to be here today. So essentially today we're going to kind of talk a little bit about design, okay? And how you can kind of create design for your Canvas courses. So when we think about design, we could think about imagery or different kind of headers for your Canvas courses, supplementary graphics to kind of introduce your modules. So this is kind of an intro to design for non-designers, okay? It's a very different kind of supplementary Canvas course, but it's great because you can use this information for Canvas, but you could also use it to design headers for newsletters or emails, something like that. Okay, so these principles can be applied to multiple areas. So I want you to ask yourself a question, you know, why is design so hard and what are some of the pitfalls that I've fallen into when I'm trying to create something for my course? Two big things that come to mind are the programs to use, okay? A lot of programs are really expensive, and then you have to know how to use them, okay? So that's a really kind of a big stopping point for some people. But also, when we think about design, you can try to create something and you're like, oh, mine still doesn't look as good as maybe something a professional would do. And it's because we don't know why things look good or how to put them together. So we're going to talk about that today, and I'm going to help you through that. We've had a lot of great sessions so far about course templates, and a lot of what I'm going to talk to you today can kind of go hand in hand with what some of you may have experienced in those sessions as well, which is great. Okay, so we may also think, you know, how can design impact my course? Here we have just a regular course that has the content that is necessary for a student to get along, but it lacks a little bit of oomph, okay? So with images, however, it can be completely transformed. The information is the same, the content hasn't changed, but it's perceived much differently. This is actually a screenshot from one of the courses that was in a Canvas course templates. It's part of the community, which is great. We also, I think, have another one. Here's a nice header. Again, this is all borrowed from the Canvas community. And here's another one. It's kind of neat to see how you can kind of take a course and build additional modules to make it like a whole experience, okay? So here's something, overall course. We even have module graphics. We even have special graphics to call your attention to certain items. So a student can see those cues and then know, oh, okay, this is the next quiz item, or this is something I should really pay attention to. This is also really helpful for those of you in the K-12 sphere. You may have students that don't know how to read, so why not put some graphics in there to kind of break up all of that text. It's also nice because if you continue that branding throughout your course on your course pages or even in your quizzes, it helps kind of make this cohesive look. So let's dive into why this works. When you go to art school, you always learn about the elements and principles of design, okay? And you could look at this as the elements, if you're looking at a recipe, a cooking recipe, the elements are kind of the ingredients that you use, and the principle are how you use those ingredients. So you beat the eggs, you sift your flour, okay? And today these are the main ones, but we're only gonna focus on these. And I've added two additional ones that are really important for today, imagery and font, or typography, okay? So we're going to dive right in with our first element. I'm going to start with imagery. So when you think about imagery, it's important to just keep it consistent. Quality and consistency is key. okay? A couple of tips with imagery. It's always easier to make a large image smaller than to make a small image larger, okay? This may go without knowing, but the last thing you want is a pixelated image for your courses. So if you begin with larger images, you could always scale them down and it's still gonna look good. You're not gonna get one of those Minecraft-looking pixelated courses. Now, a quick way to do this is if you're in Google, for example, and if you use the search tools, you can click, can you see my mouse a little bit? Okay, good. You could click on the images and search tools, and then right here you can sort by size. So you can pick the large ones to sift that out, which is nice. And then when you look at and hover over an image, you're gonna see what the size of the image is right here in pixels, okay? Now, to give you kind of a little bit of perspective, when you're working in a Canvas course, you're kind of working with 780 pixels wide, okay? That's kind of like the maximum usable space. So you're looking at this image, you can see it's plenty large, and you could always scale it down, but again, if you're looking at an image that's 500 wide and you want to stretch it, it's not going to look as good, okay? So another thing to think about is which images you choose and how they look as a whole or cohesively. Okay, so choose images from the same image family or apply the same effect to different images to make them feel cohesive. Okay, so here we have a photograph, a black and white illustration, and a vector logo. Okay, a vector graphic. They're all very different. They don't even come from the same family. Family meaning if I'm using an image, it's all images, and maybe they all use the same type of lighting. Or if I'm going to choose like an illustration, they're all the same type of illustration, whether it be black and white or cartoony type images. You want to choose things that look similar or cohesive. If you don't, you can always put an effect onto these to make them feel that way, more uniform. So right here, I've kind of applied this effect. Again, all you do is I've used the same elements and I've added a different shape and made them all black and white, and it makes them feel somewhat cohesive, okay? Now, when you're looking at imagery, when you're Googling things, when you're trying to find images for your courses, you're going to see a lot of file extensions, okay? And I'm not going to get into all of the information. This whole presentation, I've turned it into a PDF that you can then click on to get these live links, which is great. You could look at that later. I'm going to put it in the Canvas community. But just know that the main things you're going to look for are JPEGs and PNGs, okay? You're going to use those for 95% of the images you use. If you find an EPS, that's great too, but that's usually a vector file. And vector files are great because you can scale them and they're based off of mathematical things. They're not going to get pixelated, whereas if you use a JPEG or PNG, and if you try to make it larger, it will. You know, it only comes in a certain size. You can always make it smaller, but you can't make it larger, okay? So if you want to learn more about the differences between the different file types and what vector versus raster images are, I've included a great article for you here. We don't have time to get into that today. Other resources, we have 4 really great image resources. And I'm sorry, this font is messed up. I really apologize. The first is Flickr. Flickr is great because the users upload images. They're usually high quality. But when you download it, you have to make sure that the image allows, or the user gave you permission to download it. Of course, it's always best practice to cite which images you're pulling your content from. FFCU is free for commercialuse.net, okay? And again, like I said, when I have the PDF, everything is linked, so you don't have to worry about remembering that. And then again, Wikimedia Commons is good, and Morguefile. Morguefile is great because it's kind of a repository for a whole bunch of free image sites. So you can put in Panda, and then it'll bring up like all of these places where you can find free images of pandas. So that's kind of wrapping up imagery. We're now going to go to color. The big theme to think about with color is pick a scheme and stick with it. If you're a beginner, the easiest way to do that is just choose 1 or 2 colors plus black and white. Okay? Then you create a nice clean design that's not overly complicated for you. Okay? Another option is to use variations of color to promote harmony. Okay? So here's a really nice website, and basically they started with this Kermit green, and they added white to make a tint and black to make a shade, and they used all of those colors on the bottom to create one cohesive design. And that's kind of nice, but you might ask, okay, great, I picked this color I like, but how do I go about finding tints, shades, etc.? There's a really great tool. I'm going to switch over here to, it's called Color Hex, okay? And Color Hex kind of is great for people that do web development, okay? Because web development uses CSS and HTML, which relies on hex codes. Hex codes or hexadecimal codes are this 6-digit code that kind of categorize your color, okay? And so it's really important because we're going to be using these end designs for Canvas for viewability, whatever, on the web. It's important to know about hex codes and how to find hex codes, okay? So here's this green Kermit color. What's nice is I can then scroll down on colorhex.com. I could find the shades, I can find the tints, I can even find some cool color schemes that use that color. If I go to the top, you can also see user palettes, like people just upload cool color combinations, and you can even go to color names, and this is kind of nice. You can like literally scroll and it's just a whole bunch of different colors. You could pick one. If I clicked on this, then we have the same information, okay? So Color Hex, really great resource for you, especially when you're designing for web viewing. Okay, another thing to think about is what the current trend is. So as we saw in our talk this morning, we know that flat, colorful design is in. You know, we have the Canvas cards now. We see that flat, colorful design is happening a lot in like the Microsoft OS. Here's just a website for a speaker. But what I mean by flat is that you'll notice there's no gradient, a change from one color to another. There are no shadows. There are no, interesting effects. It's just color in a blocked pattern. And you'll notice geometry or alignment is usually very popular for this type of style, okay? The next thing to think about is once you have a color scheme that you've chosen, stick with it, follow through. So here's Canvas's website, and I want to show you that you can see that they've picked a color and they've carried that theme through multiple pages, which is great. So a couple of resources for color. In the middle, we have Color Hex, which I talked to you about earlier. We also have Adobe Cooler, which I'll show you a little bit more later. But Adobe Cooler allows you to upload an image. Let's say you find a website and you really love the colors that are used. You can take a screenshot, upload it into Adobe Cooler, which is online, and it does a really quick analysis of what colors are in that composition, and it gives you all the hex codes for it. So it's a really neat tool that you can use elsewhere. And then the last thing you can do, let's say you're in like a Microsoft product, like PowerPoint, for example. You can, when you choose this fill color option and you click more colors, you can then choose this little magnifying glass. And then you can pick, dot something on your page, and then it'll get that color for you, okay? So that's really neat. So that's it with color. The next thing I want to talk to you about is fonts or typography. Okay? Again, keep it simple with fonts. Fonts can be really overwhelming. You have a lot of options out there. So I want to give you a quick introduction to font families. Font families are basically different kind of categories of fonts. So you have serif and sans serif. Serif are basically the little feet that are, this is actually not a serif font, so I apologize, something got switched. But a serif font is like Times New Roman, okay? It has like the little feet over there, where a sans serif does not. You have your script fonts and your decorative fonts. And these are kind of interesting because each font kind of can convey something different, okay? And I'll tell you more about that later. Also, something that's interesting is looking at fonts, the space between fonts, the tracking, leading, and kerning, okay? And a lot of these, even if in your normal Word, for example, you have the power to change all of these measurements. So tracking is the space between the beginning and the end of the word, and you can change that. And that's kind of nice if you do a nice header for your class. You can spread out the bottom subheader so it matches the same width of your other one. Excuse me, leading is the space between lines, and then kerning is the space between individual characters, okay? And again, it's important to know about these because you have the power to change them in most of the tools that you already have. Avoid word art and stay away from default fonts, okay? So think about Google. Google has a serif font, and they're using a flat, colorful design here, but what kind of feeling would it have if you applied all these effects to it? Your fades, your drop shadows. It would be very different, okay? So my advice is always to stay away. It's better to be clean and clear, especially with modern trends. All right, so the other thing I want you to think about is limit your choices to 1 or 2 fonts. Again, this got messed up. I'm so sorry. But basically, the header should be attention grabbing, okay? And if you use a subheader, make it a little bit more simple. You could change the color, you can change maybe the treatment, so if it's italicized or all caps, for example. But again, you may think, okay, I'm not doing a whole web page, I might be just doing a banner. This can still apply. Your body text, that's going to be a little bit different because Canvas controls that, okay? Canvas controls what body font is used, so you just have to worry about your header and subheader, especially if you're designing graphics. And think about your overall message, okay? Here we have 2 very different messages, but they use the same font. They just change the width of the font, okay? And this is kind of interesting because, again, thinking about your overall message, each of those font families kind of has a different feeling. So, for example, if we look here, stability and strong, they look very similar. They're both sans serif fonts. But by changing the case, so making one all uppercase, and even spreading one out a little bit, it has a very different feel than the partner, okay? Some font resources for you. This first one is called What the Font. And it's a really cool resource. Again, if you find a font you really like, you could take a screenshot, upload it to this webpage, and then it'll do a quick analysis and try to find a good match for it. And usually it gives you links on where to find the font, which is great. Sometimes the fonts are free, sometimes they're not. Google Fonts, this is great for web development. And then the bottom 3 are great if you're going to download fonts. They're usually free for you, and then use them in another program, be it, well, whatever you want on your computer, essentially, okay? So now that we kind of talked about those elements, imagery, font, color, we're going to talk about how to apply them to make a really good cohesive design. So the first thing to think about is space, okay? It's important to give those elements space, okay? Respect the space of those elements. We have this nice header on the top that has your navigation. We have the nice call to action title that you see right here, and then we have all these elements that can get busy, but they're unified because of the color scheme and their spacing, okay? You notice that there's plenty of room in between, okay? Here's another one. These are 2 more headers. You can notice that it's not overwhelming. You kind of look in one area, your eye drifts in another area, and then it's not bad, okay? Now, I know you're not going to be building an entire website, but it's kind of nice to know about these principles and see how they're used in different ways so you can kind of do that for your own graphics. Here are 2 more. Again, it's just spread out. It's not overwhelming. Your eye travels around the image. That's the main goal, okay? Respect your backgrounds. The idea of white space, which doesn't necessarily have to be white, okay? It could be an image, it can be anything. Apple's really good at that. They want the background to be nothing so you can look at the product, which is great. And also pick a focal point, okay? Here's a website and it shifts your attention towards the car. Why? Because it's brighter than everything else, it's a different color, and it's larger, okay? So it's using different elements to kind of trick you to look there, okay? Here's another company that wants you to know what they do. And they did that by outlining their process, I guess, with a nice color, bright color. So another thing to think about is the rule of thirds. A lot of photographers use this. The rule of thirds basically says that when you have a composition, you can break it into 9 equal parts. Okay? And wherever there's an intersection, that's where the eye should go. We'll notice that most users look at this top left one first, and that's because of our reading styles. Okay? We start with the top left and move down. Okay? So when you pick an image or when you do your design, think about how you're aligning the elements in your image. Okay? Here's another one, center dominance. This is great for long images, so this is great for your headers. Again, the middle portion is most important. You can see that here, that the nice rock formation is aligned with the leftmost bar, and that the horizon, the busiest part of the image, is in that middle portion. Okay? You can see this again. Here's the little header that I put into the Canvas community page. If I overlay the rule of thirds, you can see how it definitely informed my placement. So you may be saying, great, I have these elements, I have some resources, I know kind of how to lay things out, how do I start? The best thing to do is find inspiration, really. Okay? Keep your eyes out there, see what you like, and then copy it artfully, okay? I have some really great resources here. There's a really wonderful book called Steal Like an Artist. I recommend you reading. Connie Malamed is an instructional designer that has a great blog. So she has a really wonderful post, 21 ways to get visual ideas. There's links to so many different resources there. And AIGA, which is the American Institute of Graphic Arts, they have a wonderful design archive. Their organization goes back till 1914, so they have a lot of material there, and you can see really good resources designed for posters or advertisements, record covers, you know, everything, which is really nice. So let me show you how to practice this. I found this website I really liked. It's for the Hunger Games. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make this into a Canvas header for my fake course, okay? So I put my image into Adobe Cooler. This is what the interface looks like. And you upload it, and then you could see all the points that it picks. And right here at the bottom, these are all the hex codes, and those will come into play later. And then what I came up with was this, okay? And if we look at them side by side, you can see how they're definitely influenced. Like, I was definitely influenced by this. It's very different. I can customize it, but then you can say, how am I supposed to recreate that? If you look, it's really only 3 simple things. You have a background image, okay? You have a nice shape, and then you have your text on top, okay? So when you start to kind of think about dissecting big, complicated designs into simple elements like this, it's doable, okay? Oh, nice transition there, okay. So how does this look in your Canvas course? You can put it in here as the main header. You could take it a step further and put it into a kind of adaptive table, and I'll show you how that could come into play later. It's better for flat design, not so much an image design. You could also create cool little graphics, and then you can outline your modules this way. Again, breaking up so it's not so text heavy. Talking a little bit about adaptive headers. Let's say I have a botany class. Again, it's a flat design. What's nice is if you put it in one of those frames, it kind of can grow with the screen that you're viewing it on. I have to remember sometimes that I'm designing on a large MacBook, and people that have a small Air, for example, it may not work as well. So to do that, it's actually very simple. You just put a 1-by-1 table. Under the properties, you can make it the width 100% so that it grows as the student enlarges it. And then you just enter your hex code under the advanced properties as the background color, okay? I also want to pay special attention to the resources that we have in the Canvas community. There are 3 great posts about headers and how to make really nice home pages. So it's really good to kind of look at that. Again, the PDF that I will share with you later has all of these linked, so you don't have to worry about it. And you may wonder, how did I create that, that header, the Hunger Games ones? I used Canva. Canva is another free resource. You can use it online. It's really cool because it's, I could actually shift really quick. I'll show you. Okay, so Canva is kind of neat because you can, you have different like text things that you can play with right over here, and literally you could like drag and drop, okay, and then you could, oh, I want to change the color, and if you want, you could put your hex code in, okay, now that you know how to find them. You can edit this. What's neat is they have a whole bunch of Google fonts that you can pick from, so this is a really fun tool. It's very easy. They have preset sizes, but then you could also put in custom sizes, okay, so that's wonderful. It's great for those like individual supplementary graphics for your course. Okay, so I think that's it. So I want to turn it to you. What kinds of questions do you have? Yes?
I'm pretty loud.
Okay, cool. Oh, sure, sure.
How do you translate this to mobile? Like, what is the translation between students who are looking at these on desktops versus designing for mobile?
That's a good question. So I feel like the best thing to do for mobile is make sure that you're not playing with the width, because that's, I think, what's most affected when you're viewing for mobile. We do not have a large mobile use case, I would say, so we don't really have to worry about it. But I feel like by choosing, if you're doing flat headers, for example, that putting it inside one of those tables that expands, it's better. You could start small and then work larger. Yeah, and you could also see how it tiles. Do some testing. If you want, you can insert a table, and if I have my modules across, like 4 across, that may look different if I just want to make it like singular and go down, if that makes sense. Yeah. Yes?
So when you're creating that image that you just showed in
Yeah.
Canva, that's basically just becoming an image that you're importing into Canvas, correctly?
Exactly, yeah. So you can download it as a JPEG or a PDF, I think. Yeah, and the JPEG is nice. It's like 72 ppi, which I'm not going to get into, but it's pixels per square inch. It's pretty good output for what you need. You're not going to have people viewing your designs on, you know, HD devices. So, yeah. What other questions? Anybody? Nobody? Oh, okay, cool. I just want to let you know, oh, we have one more question? Yes. Yes.
Okay, so you said for modules, so did
Yeah.
you didn't use the modules in Canvas, you just recreated the modules using your own icon?
Yeah, very good question. So she asked, okay, did I use the modules section in Canvas, or did I just like relink to it on the home page? And that's what I did. I basically made a really nice home page, and then instead of directing students to the very kind of linear modules section in Canvas, I kind of created fun graphics that I then hyperlinked to the proper module. Okay, and that's the thing. These images, you can hyperlink them, and that's what makes it fun. Okay, and again, it's great for K-12. So, yes. Yeah. So good question. She asked, how do you find the balance between making it snazzy and accessible? I think with accessibility, you have to just think about who your audience is. Okay, again, we work in an art institution, so our faculty get very creative with what they do. I think the important thing to think about, especially if you're an ID or a teacher, is to see what is like the mood of my course. And how do I kind of want to portray that in an image, a header, in the overall branding of my course? So I think with snazziness, I tend to kind of keep it more simple and clean in my designs, because then it's like no fault, and then it's easier for those that may have accessibility issues. Sure.
When you had like the grid of images or the
Yes.
octagon shape,
Yes.
each one of those individually put on there individually to be able to create the link on it?
Good question. So she asked, I had an image with little like hexagons, and were those grouped as one image, or were they individual ones? And I did it individually, because then you could have an individual image linked to a specific thing. Okay, so you don't want it to be a group, because then why are they different, you know, or how are they different? They can look the same, but they should be separate images, so then you're able to kind of point to different areas. Did that answer your question?
I guess I'm thinking about when I put images on a page.
Yes.
I either use the table, like you're saying, or when I put them on there, I couldn't line it up like that, the way you had it in different areas.
Well, I did this in PowerPoint with the hexagons. That was not in Canvas just now. But when you do that, I mean, if you want to do an offset, that would be harder. If you want to do like a honeycomb kind of effect. Yeah, the best thing to do with that is just to keep it square.
Linear, okay.
Yeah. Yes?
I just want to make a comment on that. There is a way to create hotspots in Canvas, but it's really technical.
Yeah.
So my comment was, you could create a really complex image and just make the image itself the whole thing, and then create hotspots in Canvas, but it's really quite technical to do that. And there's a YouTube video, Utah State University did a tutorial on how to create hotspots in Canvas if you want.
It's a great resource. Thank you. So a couple of last things before we wrap up. I just want to remind you that I will upload a PDF of this presentation with links to the Canvas community course. I also have a link on my website that you can get a bonus content for this presentation. And basically what the bonus content is like, great, I had this image. What do I do with it now? It's basically a checklist just to make sure that your design kind of passes some tests, okay? I have a colleague here, Noah, that has my cards, and I have some too, so if you want to come and ask questions afterwards or chat, just let me know, okay? Thank you, guys.